Welcome to EYE on Sci-Fi podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 224 of EYE on Sci-Fi podcast, the podcast where we share with you terrific indie science fiction and fantasy, online short films, web series, and other closely related media. We also, on occasion, have conversations with the talented and interesting creators who are producing outstanding indie speculative work. Thank you for joining me, and I am very excited to have you join me on this episode where we have a very special returning guest. Dan Abella is the founder and lead programmer for the New York Science Fiction Film Festival. And this year's festival will be held in New York City on September 14th. Dan joins us back on the podcast to talk about the exciting event that he has planned, including the types of films that will be exhibited and also a screenwriting competition. Dan and I always have a fantastic chat, and Dan also shares his feelings about what makes for an outstanding film, and also he gives his opinion on AI being introduced into the filmmaking process. Again, fascinating conversation. So without further ado, please enjoy the EYE on Sci-Fi podcast conversation with special returning guest Dan Abella, the founder of the New York Science Fiction Film Festival. Dan Abella, welcome back, sir, to EYE on Sci-Fi podcast.
Thank you for having me back, Rod.
Yeah, always. It's always a pleasure to have you. And we have you back on to talk about the New York Science Fiction Film Festival. So please share for my viewers and listeners what the mission of the festival is and all the nitty-gritty details, when it's going to be held, and what will be the themes of this year's New York Sci-Fi Film Festival.
So the New York Sci-Fi Festival was created back in 2017. At that time, we noticed there was no festival devoted to science fiction. There were horror film festivals and with a little bit of science fiction, but there wasn't one that was exclusively science fiction. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to put it together. We did one in 2017, and then since the pandemic, we've been doing them regularly every year. So the goal of the festival is to really create a forum where independent science fiction filmmakers can show up, some of them from New York and many of them from other parts of the world, and really encourage original thinking and filmmaking in science fiction. And it's been going very well. We originally had a few of them in Manhattan, but now we moved to a theater which runs first run films. It's called the Stewart City Cafe, and it's in Brooklyn. So we're really excited about having this new location coming up this year on September 14th, as a matter of fact, Saturday, September 14th.
Oh, you know what? It's September 14th is my birthday.
Oh, there you go. We got to have you there then.
I wish I could be, but you know what? Now that we talk about attendance, will there be a streaming component?
Yes, there is this streaming component that will be available at the end of the week. The originals, as a lot of people may be aware, there's been a lot of changes in the streaming world.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
We are working with a new company that is with significant VC venture capital support. So we'll be up and running. We'll have an up and running program in a couple of days, definitely by Friday of this week.
Okay. You mentioned that not only are filmmakers represented, of course, from the U.S., but from other parts around the world. What are some of the countries that will be represented at this year's festival?
We have countries from Denmark,
Wow.
We have Spain, we have Germany,
Okay.
UK, Italy, mostly from Europe. I think we got one from Asia as well, but we always try to go and cover as much of the world as possible.
I think that's exciting and fantastic. Was there a particular theme this year for the festival in terms of the films that you were curating for it? How did it all come together?
Okay, so yeah, and that's a really good question. Usually, the way my programmers and myself curate the festival is through themes, because there's so many different venues in science fiction. Two themes are come up, and they are reflected in the blocks of the festival. One is called The Dark Side of Eden.
Okay.
Which basically is exploring different films that purportedly suggest that their developments are good and really useful for humanity, but there's always a downside. And science fiction is always being one of that exposes the part that we usually like to ignore, the dangers over technology or genetic engineering or space exploration and so on. So that block explores the implications of a technology that's out of control. Now, the second block, which is called Future Shock. And here, I think it pretty much represents what we are experiencing today, an overwhelm of developments, and our humanity is being submerged by these developments. The films that are curated explore that, how our humanity is in danger of being basically canceled by these different developments, and how are people overreacting to the appearance of these various technologies.
That sounds fascinating. And when I looked through the programming, I saw so many films that look absolutely not only gorgeous, but definitely intriguing in terms of the topics that they handle. What were some of the standouts for you when you were programming that when you saw the films, you thought, I absolutely have to program this film?
Okay, so one film it's a New York filmmaker. It's called The Biodiversity, which explores a time in the future where water has become a commodity and is being rationed in the population, and how that affects how a system of control has been imposed on the city, on that biodiversity city, to limit the amount of water consumption.
Mm.
And I like that kind of film because it's not, as opposed to your traditional science fiction, it takes what's happening today and puts it like 5 or 10 or 20 years into the future. It's been said that it will be the next oil, next fossil fuel. And currently, certain parts of the country, certain rivers and water supplies are owned by foreign governments. So that's something that we really got to keep an eye on, how this is going to impact our way of whole life and culture. We take water and air for granted, but imagine in the future where people take water and air and they commodify it and they attach dollars and cents to it. Oh, there's so much air you can breathe, we're going to have to pay this amount of money. And it sounds crazy. We're seeing that we're living in a world of future shock. So what I think about the way I like to see a science fiction is an opportunity for us to see it's a sneak preview into the future and to really decide whether we want to go that route.
Right.
At least nobody can say, well, I didn't know. You did know, because if you come to our festival, you would have known, right? Seeing
Absolutely.
the of out of control, say, top-down control grid that it limits the water supply. For instance, there's been a lot of talk about carbon credits, and on the surface, it seems like an interesting idea, right? Your carbon credit footprint. But someone suggested that will probably be the next junk bonds, a way of monetizing systems. Like back in the days of the 1980s, when you had someone like Michael Milken took junk bonds and bundled them together, and all of a sudden he started making billions of dollars, and eventually where that went. Or just like the 2008 subprime mortgages. So some people are wondering whether this whole obsession with carbon credits may not be part of an economic blueprint to assign dollars and cents so they can then be sold in the market. There's always an angle when people really get excited about, it's not about helping humans, it's about making money. And there's always an angle. So there is no movie that focuses on carbon credits, but maybe down the line someone will come up with that, because you got to always look at the downside. It's been said that paranoia won't kill you. That ain't gonna kill you. So you gotta be on the look, especially with so much happening at the same time. We really don't have a time. We often don't have time to step back and look at the implications down the line of what this will do for us. We're looking at AI. There's some talk about AI, but there's so many other branches from the tree that haven't been explored yet. That's why I think science fiction, rather than just being pure entertainment, should be rehabilitated. It seems like a science fact or future fiction.
Yes.
Because then people will it's not just a popcorn experience, but it's something a lot more. It's a scenario of perhaps of what's to come. It's a realistic scenario. So I'm excited about participating in that. So science fiction, I say, it really does serve has a social function. It's not just drivel or mindless entertainment. There is some stuff like that, but a lot of it, that's especially in our festival, really focuses in a kind of a serious, but at the same time entertaining sort of way on what are the issues we'll be confronting 5, 10, 20 years from now.
Absolutely. And to your point, we live in a late stage capitalist society. And so, as you said before, usually when there is a new technological advance that's being heralded, especially by big tech, the bottom motive isn't, as you say, to help humanity, but for profit. And absolutely. And I love that you select films that really touch on that and that seem almost prescient in what they have to say in terms of where we're going with our relationship with technology and what do we need to do in order to avoid certain outcomes. And I think that's always been an important function of science fiction, not only for entertainment, but also they serve as modern cautionary tales often. And again, with your programming at the festival, I do appreciate that you and your team focus on films that do that. You also have a film, too, we're talking about technology that is set on Mars, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yes.
Can you talk about that?
Okay, so this film is directed by, and the director will be attending. Takes place, first of all, the actual plot takes place following an interplanetary war between Earth and Mars, between a colony of Earth and colony of Mars and Earth, and takes place 3 generations afterwards. So the Earth has been virtually devastated. So the approach, the director, it uses a really interesting experimental approach with a narrative. So there are characters that are being questioned and interrogated as to what causes this destruction. And it creates a very realistic depiction of what would happen, let's say, 50, 75 years down the line, perhaps after Musk and his SpaceX colonizes Mars, what will happen? And it reflects back to us at certain issues of dealing with the human condition. How can we get along without destroying ourselves? It does. What I find really intriguing about this film is the cinematography is very unusual. And in fact, for those who are familiar with the works of Craig Baldwin, he was an experimental found footage director who films like The Spectre of the Spectrum or Tribulation 99. They take found footage and create this kind of a collage that has a different kind of meaning. So this film doesn't use found footage, but the way the colors and the cinematography, it is very evocative of something super real. So I really like that it's not just another sci-fi. It's a lot more suggestive.
What is the name of the film, Dan?
It's called Red Earth.
Will there be a Q&A with the director?
He will be attending the feature presentation.
Oh, very good. Okay. And so then the audience then will be able to have a brief question and answer session.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I expect anywhere between 15 and 20 filmmakers to attend the workshop. I don't know what keeps calling it. It's actually kind of film festival. For me, it's a workshop. It's more than just entertainment. But yes, the festival. There are, for instance, there's a documentary on cryonics. And it's tongue-in-cheek, but it's still interviewing the developer of cryonics, where people have their bodies cryonically suspended until something in the
Because
future.
that's a real life
That is true.
technology, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Now, not much has come of it, but I think some people. It's a short documentary, and it's very interesting about how it explores our relationship with our mortality and death and technologies, but done in a kind of a lighthearted way. I want to emphasize that these films are well done because they're not preachy. You don't want to have films that are too preachy because it turns off people, but they don't hit you over the head. There are enough nuances in the film that makes you start thinking afterwards. For example, The Matrix, right? So you can see The Matrix is just entertainment, good old kung fu. But then you start thinking about there's another meaning to The Matrix.
Right.
And that this ability to go deeper, it really makes something very wonderful. And you are able to enjoy the film rather than just take on the superficial meaning of the film.
Let's talk about then the other feature that I thought sounded very intriguing. It's called The Coldness. And I know that the filmmaker is also going to be available as well after the film for a Q&A, but describe what The Coldness is about. What is this premise, and what was it about this film that made you decide to make it the other feature of the festival?
The Coldness is first of all, the acting is awesome. I think the lead actor will be attending the film festival, and it basically explores it's a cold case of someone that was killed many years ago. And this is a detective who believes that he's got a sense that it can be explored, that he can understand what this is all about. So the exploration leads him through a rabbit hole of encounters with supernatural or occult phenomena. And eventually he starts to lose his grip on reality. And the way a lot of the film takes place in a kind of a conversation place, like he's actually talking to the camera. And a lot of films that have attempted to do that get very boring after 5, 10, 15 minutes. But this one really grips you. It holds you till the very end. It's not just him just talking to the camera, but it follows him. And so there's an element of found footage. There's an element of a mockumentary. So it has a real strong mockumentary vibe. So it explores the ecosystem of our human mind. And we have to be careful about going down these rabbit holes because they could end up shattering our concept of who we are. The acting was awesome, and it's actually a New York premiere.
Oh, great.
New York premiere, and the actor, who is a New Jersey and a veteran, amazing job, will be present for that on Saturday. Well, on Saturday, yeah.
On Saturday. Okay, and I noticed too that there were a couple of other films programmed that have a more supernatural slant that involve the occult. Is that accurate? And if so, why did you include those in the festival?
So what I usually do is I like to include supernatural or eerie films, not just straight up horror. Mm-hmm. One of them is called Jinx.
Okay.
Which is about a young woman who was raised by her grandma, but something about her grandma kind of sticks with her. She becomes superstitious about things. And that superstition eventually begins to overpower her grasp on reality. And so that I looked at that film as a good, and she's also a New York female filmmaker. And I think it's definitely well handled without the melodrama that you will usually see in these kind of films.
That sounds fascinating. How many films total will be exhibited this year, Dan?
I believe the last time I checked, there would be about 30 films.
Wow.
And in addition to that, the festival actually has films, but it also has a screenwriting competition.
Great. Please elaborate on that.
We've always said that the writing is really the heartbeat of good story. Without good writing, if the story falls apart. I mean,
I agree.
There's so far you can take a film with just special effects and horror and so on. You really have to the good writing, good character, good development. We've seen films that have done well and shot on a very small budget. Part of our goal here is to encourage good writing, and that's so easy. Unfortunately, with today's technology, it's so easy to ignore that and says, we don't need that. And unfortunately, I see a lot of filmmakers sending me films that are just terrible. Not that well written, done. And I want to encourage you guys to spend a little bit more time instead of sending me a feature. spend more
Right.
time on a short, really hone that craft.
I
And
feel
then,
your pain because in my day job as a film curator, we are beginning to see filmmakers that are essentially taking short stories, they're narrated, and then putting them into AI visual tools and submitting that. And we have to tell them this is not a film. What you're
yeah,
submitting is a narrated short story with visuals, and often the art is way off. It's not even consistent. I hate to see that. And I'm so glad that in your festival, that's always been important to you to focus on quality writing. You can have a short film with fantastic writing, maybe not the best in terms of visual effects, but if the writing is good and the performances are on point, you've got an engaging story to tell. And I am glad that you are just really focusing on that craft of screenwriting, that AI can't do that for you.
no, we can't. And I think we really need to retain that. It's one of the things that might be lost if we don't really focus on that. Is too much emphasis on technology being our midwife to do anything. We really need to
Shortcut.
go old school. And I would even go as far as going, when you write it, don't even do it in a computer, do it longhand, which most
Right.
people don't do. The more you engage your brain directly without the use of a computer, the more you'll be activating certain neural pathways that don't open themselves up when you're typing. Although most people will type a script on their computer, and that's fine. But I would say just grab all that good old pencil, number 2 pencil, right away. I do that because I appreciate technology and it facilitates certain things, but other things we really need to do the hard work,
Right.
do the heavy lifting. If you don't do the heavy lifting by writing a good story, you're not doing anybody any favors by just making a film and worse, a feature, thinking it's just a long shot. But don't do that, because it breaks my heart when I see a lot of films that they put a good money into it and the writing is horrible, and the characterization, the acting is terrible. That's how you're going to be able to separate the human from the AI.
Exactly. And I'm just being optimistic here, but I think what's going to happen is that filmmakers who do focus on their craft, making sure that they write or either find a good story to tell, they're going to stand out from the rest. It's like night and day. And I think that in the long run, that's going to encourage people to actually do the work, that there are no shortcuts to making art, not quality art that will engage people. Yeah, you can throw it in and ask ChatGPT to write a script, but there's something about a human writing about human experiences that you just can't replicate. And I don't think AI will ever be able to duplicate that.
I don't think so. And you would say even neurologically, they find that artists and poets and maybe some filmmakers use their right brain a lot more. When you're just plugging everything through an AI, you're just using your left brain, using an AI system. You're not doing part of the artistic endeavor is to come up with areas that are more sublime, more subtle, more nuanced. You're not going to get that with just formulas or patterns that are plugged into a system. Yeah, I definitely. We have graphic novels. We have graphic novels, and we also have screenwriting.
Okay.
And I think the couple of writers will be available as well. So again, the issue is don't just rush to shooting something. Start with a good story, and then from that, learn a little bit about directing and about acting, and then build the cast, good actors. Like when they asked Hitchcock about directing, he says, "No, the actors basically do all the job for me." And once you get it to that point, 90% of it is there. It's not that hard. This idea, well, we'll fix it on post. No, that's not smart.
Dan, I read a book about the famed director Robert Wise, and the way that he casted, because you mentioned acting, is that he casted the right actor for the role. He didn't look at who was the hottest A-list actor. He saw actors and he said, you are perfect for this role. And I believe that's the key. He directed so many films I wasn't even aware of. And many people don't realize how many seminal films he directed, but that was his philosophy. Yeah, he directed The Sound of Music. That was his philosophy, is fit the actor to the role and not vice versa. Oh, this is the hottest lead, so put him in this movie. And I think that's a problem with modern cinema now. But getting back to the festival and the awards ceremony, would the awards be announced at the festival? And then what categories do you have?
They'll be announced. There'll be a brief award presentation, and they'll be
Okay.
announced at the end of the evening. This is a one-day event.
Okay.
And it's best science fiction feature, best supernatural feature, best science fiction short, best trailer. What else? Best screenplay, short screenplay, long form screenplay, best graphic novel, best animation. We have some awesome animations, really.
Oh, nice. Okay. Fantastic. I'm a
Awesome.
big fan of animation.
Yeah, no, we got a few ones. And so, yes, there are about 10 different categories. And I'm hoping that many of the filmmakers will be there. I'll let all of them know to stay put for that, for the
Okay.
award show. And yeah, we could have done a 2-day festival, but my goal is to stream it down to one day, but awesome films. No filler. Absolutely. We were tempted to just do it to another extra day, but I looked at the remaining films and I said, this is not the same quality. So anyone who comes to our festival will be, I think they'll walk away with having a nice overall experience of what it is. And we always do it. We always leave people on a good state. So it's not like we're going to drop the downer at the end and leave. No, our goal is to, it's like I see it's almost like a roller coaster, right? You start slow and then you reach a peak and you're really very intense and you slowly bring them back. But that's our part of our programming style. So they can feel good. They can look back at the film and say, yeah, this is some interesting shorts. And I think that we'll find something there that will be, they'll be able to talk more about.
That sounds fantastic. Dan, where can people interested in attending the festival, where can they find out more about how to get tickets? And also for those of us who can't be there in person, where can we find out how to purchase tickets to the streaming component?
Okay, so the festival, the best way is to go to the website. And the festival website is www.newyork, then sci-fi-fest.com. All the information will be there. Plus, we also have some New York Sci-Fi T-shirts for those who are interested in just grabbing one. So I think those who show up, again, this is a festival this is a theater that holds first run films, and it's small, but it's very intimate, and it's got an amazing, awesome concession stand. I think they got a restaurant next door.
Oh,
So
nice.
you bring your hamburger there. It's like 4.9 out of 5 on Yelp. So I think
Okay.
people will have an overall good experience because it's not just the movie, but the theater, the location, the concession stand. That's all contributes to the experience.
I'm so jealous, and I wish that I could attend on my birthday. That would be fantastic. I'm such a sci-fi geek. I'm hopeless, but it sounds like you have a wonderful, as usual, event planned. I will make sure and put the link in the show notes too, where my listeners and viewers, they can go if they're going to be in the New York area. If you are going to be in the New York area, everyone, September 14th, then definitely I recommend go to the festival. You're going to enjoy it. But I'm going to put that information in the show notes so everyone would know where to go and buy tickets, get a t-shirt, all of that good stuff.
And the streaming information the stream itself will be live by the end of the week for those who want to. And I'll send you a link as well so you can go and check out the films on your birthday.
Okay. Oh, great. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. And thank you again for coming back onto the podcast to talk about the festival. You guys always put on a good time. I've heard so many good things about it. So I think that this is going to be another success for you. And I really do appreciate everything that you do for independent filmmakers as well.
Thanks, Rod, for supporting us. And hopefully one day we can meet live and
Yeah,
we'll do a simulcast, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, fantastic.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dan. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And there you have it. Our latest conversation with returning guest Dan Abella, the founder and programmer of the New York Sci-Fi Film Festival. Listen, we always have such a great time having Dan on the podcast, and this occasion was no different. So, if you are in the New York City area on September 14th, the festival will be conducted on one day, but it's going to be jam-packed with films, Q&As with the filmmakers, and also an awards show for screenwriting. I highly recommend that you attend the New York Sci-Fi Film Festival. And of course, links to where you can find out more about the festival, where you can get tickets, and also the programming blocks that are planned will be included in the show notes of this episode. Also, in the show notes of this episode, make sure to visit our link tree. You will be able, by means of the link tree, to visit our website, the7thmatrix.com, where you can explore all of the other terrific independent science fiction and fantasy short films, web series, and other closely related media. I also encourage you to sign up for our new daily newsletter. Monday through Friday, we will send you a single speculative news item. So it can be a book, television series, or film recommendation. It can be a podcast episode, either Eye on Sci-Fi podcast or other podcasts related to the genre and so much more. And it is free. And for signing up, you will receive a free gift from us as a token of our appreciation for supporting us in this way. And then finally, I do need to ask you to leave us a review and 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. That really does help others find us, and we appreciate that a great deal too. Okay, so that's it for this episode, everyone. And again, thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, remember to take a break, escape the mundane, and enter the fantastic. Take care.